And greetings, everyone. I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion, as you can tell from the title up there. Continuing my trek through Everybody Loves Raymond Season 6. We're in the final stretch for that season, and soon we're going to be entering Season 7. The last season aired before I started watching, and the more recent one that they were showing bits and pieces of in syndication, mainly from the beginning part, because of when I started watching in late spring into early summer. And then, of course, in a couple months' time, we'll be starting episodes that I saw during first run. So that should be an interesting little thing to talk about, because then it'll be like, saw that one, saw that one, saw that one. But we'll get to that when we get to that. And as I said at the end of the last episode, this is one of the few times where we have a couple episodes in a row that are very much in continuity. Like before this in the show, there were bits of continuity where they'd reference stuff that happened in previous episodes. And then times when they mention a lot of stuff. I mean, there's the big running gag of Harriet Lickman, Marie's bridge partner. That's going to pay off pretty soon. But this is the first one where it's like back to back to back. Not counting two-parters, because that's more like one long Uber episode. This, of course, is Marie and Debra's big tiff that lasts until the first episode of the next season. This, of course, is the beginning of it. Mother's Day, and this is the episode by Jen Crittenden, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Now, remember, before I get too far into it, if you want to support the channel, both the Patreon and PayPal links are down below. If you just want to do one-off support or a one-off request for the channel, go the PayPal route. If you want to continue to support the channel, gain access to videos like this early, or suggest topics for future videos, go the Patreon route. Either way, your support is very much appreciated. Now, Mother's Day. We've seen Marie and Debra have tiffs before. I mean, there's the episode where Debra wrote the letter, and Marie tried to write one back. We've seen them have little snippy bits back and forth for stupid reasons. Some of which are like, yeah, that's just stupid. Other of which cross into the just no mother-in-law territory, which is why I use that as one of my tags in the video. This is one where it is stupid, but also crosses into the just no mother-in-law territory because of one simple action around the midway point by Marie. Now, the episode begins in what could be considered like a normal day where Debra's trying to wrangle the kids and they're not wanting to cooperate, which we've seen multiple times. She's trying, mainly the twins, but Allie's not helping, and Debra's like, hey, the only reason I let you get older was so to help me. This is one of the negative parts about having twins, is that you gotta wrangle two of them at once. Well, then Marie comes across the street, enters with two of her buddies. It's not Lee and Stan. It's a couple other friends. I think it's Hilda and Artie is the name she mentions. Which I don't remember if we've seen them yet to this point, but I think they might just be friends they've mentioned in passing, or this might be their first time. Either way, it doesn't matter. We don't really see them that much. Anyway, she's trying to get the twins to do knock-knock jokes. So she's essentially just coming over to play grandma. Or to steal an ism from my own grandmother used to describe my mother. Those of you who know what I've talked about my parents probably know where I'm going at with that, but I'm not going to get too much into it in this episode, where she comes over to play Grandma of the Year, which you've seen Marie do all the time. There's times where it's, alright, okay to do it. This is not one of those times. This is a time where you see they're busy, and either you go and help Debra, because she's trying to wrangle the kids, or you'd be like, oh, I see it's a bad time, we'll come back another time. But no, that'd be a good idea. Instead, Marie just keeps trying to stomp over everything, get the twins to do a knock-knock joke until Debra finally snaps and is like, Marie, we are not telling knock-knock jokes. We're going upstairs for our baths. And then you can tell from how Doris Roberts plays it in the scene, you can tell Marie is very offended. And she's like, well. And there's a deleted scene where Hilda and Arnie have a reaction afterwards. You can see why it was cut. It's a little moment that's a little humorous for the audience, but when you're editing stuff down, it's not fully needed, and it's not very important to the plot. Well, next day, Marie comes over to get her big spoon back. Ray and Debra are in their kitchen, and she's talking to Ray, and then she's like, ask Debra, she's the one that borrowed it. And Marie's like, you can tell, intentionally ignoring, and keeps addressing Ray. She eventually gets the spoon and leaves, but then Ray and Debra are like, that was weird. And Ray's like, you two have a tiff? And Debra explains what happened that we saw in the opening scene. She's like, she can't be mad because of that, can she? Now, of course, we, the audience, know, like, yeah, she can be that because we're seeing it from the outside. And of course, our thoughts are echoed by a line Ray says is like, I can't believe you're so naive still. It's true, but this is a new low even for Marie. That's why I believe Debra was like that. Like, really? She's this low? And they keep talking about it. Then Ray says something where he really sticks his foot in his mouth, where he tells Debra maybe she should go over there and apologize. Like, no, this is not a situation where Debra needs to apologize for anything. Yeah, she was a little snippy with Marie, but Marie was not listening. She knew she was talking, but she was not listening to her. That's a situation where you don't try to do what you did. So Debra has nothing to apologize for. Marie, is, if anyone, is the one that needs to apologize for trying to stomp over her boundary there. Well then, Ray goes back across the street and talks with his mother, and after he was invited, by the way, and she's giving him cake to try to apply for information, and we see that with this, that Debra was intentionally getting that treatment by Marie, and it was not so subtle because, you know, even Ray noticed it, and he's like, oh, you mean when you and I talking to her? Like, oh, good, you noticed it too. And she tries to tell her, oh, your wife happened to be rude in front of my friends Hilda and Arnie. I was just trying to get the twins to do a knock-knock joke going with everything. You know, and part of it is, I guess, Hilda was telling her how close she is with her daughter-in-law. And it's one of those things that once you learn that, you're like, Marie, really? You're trying to do that because of how close your friend is? Not everybody has the same relationship as we've seen in previous episodes. I mean, you guys are close, but you're not close to the point where you guys feel comfortable calling each other mom. Or at least both sides of the family do, because of that whole thing being ruined by Debra's mother not liking Debra calling Marie mom. But that's a whole other thing. We already talked about that in a previous episode. Now, Ray, being Ray, you know, he always tries to keep the peace so that there's no drama on either side, even though sometimes it is for his own benefit, which we're going to see a little bit in the next episode. How Ray does try to get her to come down, but then Marie gets angry at Ray and takes a cake that she gave him away. And of course, Frank's on the side, you know, just doing little comments every now and then, like, you know, you don't know what we're talking about. That's right, because I stay out of it. Or my favorite part when it's mentioned that Hilda and her daughter-in-law went for a spa day, and he's like, hey, I'm eating here. Little fun little snide comments, and Peter Boyle just plays it wonderfully. Now Ray goes back across the street, and Marie soon follows, and she does one of her apologies that turns into a non-apology. Where at first it seems like she's going to be the bigger person and actually apologize, but then she has to stick her foot in her mouth and insult Debra further by going, yeah, I should realize that by that time in the afternoon you lost complete control of the kids. And Debra decides, you know what? I'm fine with not talking with her. And, you know, she puts it, yeah, after Ray says, hey, she's talking to you again. Well, that might be the case, but I'm done talking to her, and walks away. And this is a situation where I'm like, I'm fully on Debra's side, because Marie, she can be overbearing, critical, and intrusive, as Debra put it a couple seasons ago with the letter episode. But here, doing that, this is just Marie being a bitch, for lack of a better term, just stealing a line from Joanne from the end of season 4. She's acting like one here. But she's definitely acting like a just no mother-in-law here. This is one of those things that, like, if your mother-in-law ever did this to you, I would not be surprised if you stopped talking to her despite what your spouse wanted. Obviously, Ray doesn't want them to go that route, but it's one of those things that, like, Ray, you're so in the fog. And obviously it's a show, so they're going to make up eventually and everything. But in real life, this would be a situation where, like, Ray, you got to stand by your family, which that's going to play into the next part of the episode, because based on the title, you know a certain holiday is going to come into play, and that's Mother's Day. And since these two are talking, they're not having the perfect Mother's Day. And Debra and them are not going to be going next door for Marie to make them all a big giant brunch. And because of them not coming over, Marie just doesn't feel complete with Mother's Day. I mean, as Robert and Frank put it when they come across the street, she's got her baby books over there and she's humming lullabies. And of course, Ray and the kids are trying to do their best to make the Mother's Day perfect for Debra, but it doesn't work. And then, of course, eventually Marie comes across the street. Debra comes down. We've got the whole adult family down there, and they're talking. And they're trying their best to make the peace, but it's not working. And the part about this episode that I really want to smack Ray upside the head is that he does not grasp that although he's always going to have his mother, his dad, his brother, and all that, in a situation like this, where it's your mother versus your spouse, most of the time you want to try to side with your spouse, unless it's a situation where your spouse is just completely in the wrong, like they're framing your parents or something. But of course, in this situation, Debra is the one in the right. She had a reason to snap, and she had a reason to be offended by Marie's sorry, not sorry apology. So this is a situation where, steal some more Reddit phrases, he needs to get his head out of the fog, his head out of his ass, and side with his wife, and be like, Ma, either you stop acting like that, and you actually give Debra a genuine apology, or you're not welcome over here, and I'm not coming to see you. Something like that. But we know that's not going to happen in the show, especially for a sitcom at this point in time. Maybe a more modern sitcom, they might be able to do it with the right writers and the right actors in the roles. But here, no. Then Ray decides he's going to lambast a little bit about Debra, And, we all know this won't be happening if my wife wasn't so snippy. And I just love that Frank comes to Deborah's defense right here. It's like, because being rude is sometimes the only thing that gets through to Marie. How do you think I got the way I am? I used to be a gentleman. And they start arguing. It looks like they're not going to talk to each other anymore. Then Robert, police lieutenant as he is, steps in and gets them to stop arguing and points out that this is supposed to, we're family. We know you two love each other. Now, his comments are more directed at Marie and Debra, but you could also tie it back into the little argument that Frank and Ray just had, and they apologize, but it does not work. Marie leaves, Debra goes upstairs, and Mother's Day is officially ruined. Now, the ending scene is Ray still trying to get them to make peace, but it doesn't work, because Deborah's like, I believe I've removed the source of the drama. So it's good to see that she's putting her foot down for a little bit. Now, based on the fact I said this is a 4-parter and the fact, sitcom writing, it's not going to last forever. But at least it's nice to see that Debra has a little bit of a shiny spine and she's going to implement it. As much as it may not be pleasant for Ray because of the fact that his wife is arguing with his mommy. Now, one moment I haven't mentioned yet was when Marie first gets there, how she tries to manipulate Ray to go back across the street with her. Oh, I was just across the street looking at your baby book, recalling the agony of your delivery. Doris Roberts plays that moment off beautifully. And you could tell she's trying to manipulate Ray to come with her. And it ties back in perfectly to another moment right before she leaves. And she's like, I'm going back across the street. Who's coming with me? She grabs Robert to go with her. But then she's looking at Ray. Ray looks over at Frank and he's like, she ain't my mother. Even though the thing I said about wife, siding with it, is Frank. By this point, he's going to do whatever the hell he wants unless it's a certain situation. This situation, I'm not going back across the street. And it's a beautiful little moment. And this, as you can tell by how I'm talking about it, is the perfect beginning for this little one. Now, next couple parts is going to be, next episode is called The Bigger Person. If I remember right, it's when Frank and Ray start playing the two against each other to quote-unquote exploit the situation. Then the next one will be the final flashback episode of the show. Because, season 7 ends with the wedding. Season 8 and 9 both have their own different things. 9, of course, ends with Ray's surgery. So this will be an interesting one to talk about. And it'll be about the first time that Ray and Debra danced the tango, if you get what I mean. But it also ties back into the whole relationship thing, which is one thing I really want to smack Marie for, because when we get to that, it's about her being a hypocrite, but we'll talk about that then. And then, of course, the last one is going to be The Cult, which is the first episode of Season 7, and it's how they finally get everyone to get back on the same page. And, of course, we get another sighting from Cousin Gerard, so that'll be fun. But, of course, we got to do an episode at a time, so the next one, which will be live not long after I do this one with how my plan is for this 4-parter, is going to be about them going from, oh, I hate all this, like, ooh, we could really use this to work with. And I think it goes without saying that if you really want to show somebody how bad the dynamic between Marie and Debra can get in the show, this is a good 4-parter to show. Even if you just show them the first half of it and then let their imagination play, it is still one to watch. And of course, obviously these 3 kind of go together as a much watch for this season, and it'll be kind of a cheat, but they go together in one block, these next 3 episodes. But next time will be the bigger person. Till then, guys.